السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسرنا أن يكون معنا اليوم في أسبوع التوعية المهنية السنوي لمدرسة بيان البحرين معالي الدكتورة الشيخة رنا بنت عيسى بن دايج آل خليفة، الأمين العام لمجلس التعليم العالي ونائب رئيس مجلس أمناء مجلس التعليم العالي، الحاصلة على شهادة الدكتوراه في القانون الدولي من جامعة أكسر في بريطانيا، والتي تولي الاهتمام الأكبر لتعليم عال ذو جودة عالية الأداء ويلبي متطلبات التنمية المستدامة. كما تطمح معالي الدكتورة نحو الاستثمار الأمثل للمواطن البحريني ليسهم في الوصول بمملكة البحرين إلى مصاف الدول المتقدمة. فلتتفضل معالي الدكتورة.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسعدني أني أكون اليوم متواجدة معاكم. شكرا. وأشكر طبعا الشكر لمعالي الدكتورة الشيخة ميل عتيبي على إتاحة لي الفرصة أني أكون وياكم اليوم ونعطيكم نبذة شوي عن أنتم عندكم career week. وبتكلم بالإنجليزي. You're going through career week, higher education, and the Bahraini job market is the topic that I'm going to be speaking to you about. It's a very important topic. I can see a lot of girls and boys, 11th graders, 12th graders. You're probably all deciding on the university that you would like to go to continue your education. It's a tough decision to make, especially at this age. So it's very important to get a few pointers at this time. I'm going to talk to you about the Higher Education Council in Bahrain. The Higher Education Law came out in 2005, and in 2020 there was an amendment to the law. And the change was to separate the Higher Education Council from the Ministry of Education. So right now, the Higher Education Council is a separate entity. It reports to a board of trustees. And in May of 2021, I was appointed as Secretary General of the Higher Education Council, in addition to being Deputy Head of the Board of Trustees. So our role is to regulate higher education institutions in the Kingdom of Bahrain. We have 19 universities and colleges. 19. That's a big number for Bahrain. 6 are government, and the rest are private institutions. So you do have big choice to go through. We, as regulators, make sure that they are in line with the law, with all our bylaws. But studying abroad is also very important. So if you have the opportunity to study out of Bahrain, I would encourage you to take it. I did all my studies out of Bahrain, and there are certain skills that you learn along the way. So let's start with our presentation. وظائف المستقبل, the job opportunities in the future. So my presentation is going to be divided into 5 different chapters. So the first one is وظائف المستقبل, job opportunities in the future. And if you would like to ask me any questions, please raise your hands and you could go ahead. The second part is تأثير جائحة COVID-19 على وظائف المستقبل, and how did COVID change people in the workforce? How did it change work habits? What jobs were created because of the pandemic? And we're still going through the pandemic. What jobs were kind of eliminated because of this? The third part is just data analysis. And number 4 is our المبادرات الوطنية لإعداد لوظائف المستقبل. So what has the government done? On the 24th of November, we had a panel from the government where they spoke about our economic recovery plan, and the economic recovery plan set a target of $30 billion, and it states that we will have about 20,000 new jobs a year by 2024, with an additional training of about 10,000 Bahrainis yearly, and the total revenue is 2.5 billion, which is anticipated by, I think, 2020, if I'm not mistaken. And finally, أهم النصائح التي تسهم في الاستعداد لوظائف المستقبل. So just our input and what you might need to know in order to find the right degree that suits you. So, Jennifer Fleming said, التعليم في عصر الإنترنت يعني أنه يجب علينا اليوم تعليم مهارات الغد. We have to learn tomorrow's skills today to make us, go with the future. Otherwise, you always have to be one step ahead. So you would have to know what is needed tomorrow in order to fulfill today and get what's done today. So what are the future job opportunities for you? By 2025, 85 million jobs will be eliminated. But the good thing is that 97 million jobs will be created. So you're going to see a big shift in the change of the different job opportunities. A lot of different occupations will not be available by 2025. And this is because of technology. And you can see because of the pandemic, a lot has changed. We just became so mobile, we became more accessible, everything's on the internet. So I'm sure that maybe you've attended class more than you would have attended class if you were actually in school. Because from my experience at work, we've had so many meetings just because that, people would think you're more accessible. So, okay, let's have a Zoom meeting at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. Before that, no one would schedule a meeting at 4. The regular working hours in the government is like from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. So you're in the office between these hours, and work is done then. But because everything's on Zoom, everything's online, you're accessible all the time. And even with the phone technology, you're required to answer, your phone, and sometimes a lot of decisions are made after hours. So a lot is going to change. Different job opportunities are going to be out there. I'm sure your IT department is different. You needed to probably hire some more people for the IT department. I think so. You probably needed to buy some more electronic equipment. So this all adds up to what's needed in the future. So, يتوقع أصحاب الأعمال توفير فرص إعادة تأهيل. Okay, so you need to go over your skills again, because 70% of the employees by 2025 need to change their skills, and 43% of companies out there said that they're going to downsize, that they're going to be eliminating jobs. So the opportunities are less. But this, don't think of it as a negative way. Opportunities are less in companies that exist now, but what is needed in the future is quite different. So you don't have to put yourself, in certain places where, okay, I'm going to go to this school, I'm going to graduate with this degree, and I'm going to work here. It doesn't work that way anymore. There might be new companies in 4 or 5 years, which you did not know existed. Different techniques and job opportunities are out there. So this is a very important number to keep in mind. Multitasking also, they would probably want a person with more than one trade. So, the IMF went and did a study. 97.3 million, or 15% of our workforce in 35 different countries are at a risk of losing their jobs. So it's a big number. So if you're at that risk, what do? You have to go back, find out what are the skills that you have, and maybe go back to school, study something else. So what's happened, or maybe 30, 40 years ago, and maybe our parents' generation, your grandparents' generation, when someone had a job, it's a job for life. But right now, it's not a job for life, because people would change their jobs approximately every 5 years. People move from one place to another. The stability of having a job with the same education that you took won't be available anymore. The technology changes, everything changes, so you have to adapt to the change and try to figure out what you could do to move on. So, I don't know if you can see this, but these are jobs that are going to be needed in a higher number, and those are jobs that are going to be eliminated with time. So just to give you some examples, what do you need to study? Risk management, and how to handle, whatever it is, whatever you go through in a job when there's a crisis. And a lot of sciences is here. Artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, those are all degrees that are needed for the future. But what's going to be eliminated? HR managers, accountants, a lot of secretary, so many different, bank tellers. There are so many now. You've seen now with the bank, everything's online. You can open up an account just using your mobile phone. You can transfer funds from here to there just using your mobile phone. So the tellers in banks, we won't need so many tellers eventually. So there's a lot of things that are going to be changing with time. in addition to getting a university degree, it's not just the degree that you get. It's also the skills that you would acquire while getting your degree. It's the skills that you learn here at school. Just before coming here, I walked around the campus, and I was very happy to see that some of your students went and, they just started, or they've built a go-kart. So it's the critical thinking that's important. They might not need it eventually for their work, but it's the way the mechanics work, how things fit together. All of these are skills that have been given to you because of your privilege to be here at Bahrain Bayan School. So you might not notice them, you might not feel them, but eventually they're part of your character. They're part of who you became. So there are a lot of skills that you would need to have, because if I would employ someone, I won't only look at their CV, credentials, etc. I will have an interview with them. But during this interview, I would need someone who would be able to solve problems. So I might give them a problem and ask them, what would you do if this problem would have happened? So you need people who could solve problems. You would need people who would be able to think out of the box. You would need people to manage situations, even though they are not managers. What happens if right now the lights, we lose electricity and the lights turned off and the mic wasn't working? So you need someone to just, act quick and not just stand there and say, oh, it's not in my job description, I can't do that, I'm not going to do that. It doesn't work that way. So these are all skills that you need to pick up. And any boss likes a person who is proactive, who would come up with new initiatives, new ideas. We don't live in a world right now where, you live in a closed-door policy. We, as heads of management, heads of organizations, we have an open-door policy, and we would like to listen and learn. And it's not wrong when you get ideas from people who have just joined your institution. I like to call, started this new job, I like to call the people in to my office and get their ideas and their views on how things should be done. They would know more than me. They've been doing this, let's say, for the past 4 years, 5 years. I've just been there for 6 months, so they're a bit hesitant at the beginning, but it's very important to learn. So once you're in the job market, don't feel scared or don't feel like you can't say what you have or what's on your mind. So second part of our presentation is the COVID-19. So what has COVID done to different occupations? Accommodation and food services was the most affected by it. Hotels, restaurants, 47%. So that's a big number. And now we're in our second year. So Bahrain, alhamdulillah, everything is back to normal, but in some countries, they're still having lockdowns in Europe, which we hear about every day, and God knows what's going to happen next. So that industry is the most industry affected. Wholesale and retail trade, transportation, Uber drivers in Europe have been affected dramatically in 2020. They tried to pick up in 2021, but the transportation is also up there. Education is, because of the expenses that they would put in, but the students are home. Many of the students here in Bahrain, or many parents pull their children out of private schools and they put government schools because everything was online, so they were thinking, why should we pay such high fees? So a lot of schools, and maybe universities too, with the ones with the higher fees, probably were affected as well. Construction, manufacturing, and social assistance, professional services, administrative and support, government and public sector. The government, many governments couldn't employ couldn't employ the number of people that they wanted to employ because the revenues of most of the countries were down. So that was also affected. Financial services and insurance, mining, agriculture, and utilities is the least. So, it's very important to prepare our youth now, post-COVID, because you can see there was a loss of 195 million job opportunities or occupations. So, because of the not having a consistency in education, there's a loss of about $10 trillion, or 10% from the whole world revenue because of this. And this is all from the World Bank. So we are seeing an increase in the number of online learning and working online and having a lot of trade online. There's a negative effect on this with our jobs, desk jobs in the marketplace. تزداد الوظائف في التخزين والنقل نتيجة النمو في التجارة الإلكترونية, so there's a lot of electronic trade going on. A lot of the CEOs and heads of organizations have moved to a more electronic way of using artificial intelligence, making sure everything is online, all the paperwork, everything is online, because you need to have it accessible wherever you are. If one day something happens and you have to work from home, you can't work from home with all your files in the office. Right now, everyone has a laptop and they carry this laptop with them, and everything is just stored in the cloud somewhere. So we don't need to have big offices, we don't need to have large filing cabinets, large filing rooms. Everything is online, and people are moving towards this much more. A big step also, because of COVID, is that you've seen that we need more healthcare workers. We need more nurses, we need more doctors. Maybe we will see an increase in the number of medical schools opening up around the world, not only here in Bahrain, but during my time at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I remember during the pandemic, we reached a point where we needed some nurses because the current nurses we couldn't cope with the numbers that we had. So we had to ask some of the friendly countries if we could get some of their, get some of their nurses to Bahrain. But we were successful. We were able to get the numbers that we needed, but it was very competitive because many countries or everyone was going through the same thing. So they were saying, it's okay, we can provide X number of nurses, but we can't provide what you need. We can only provide this number because we also need them for our country. We are all going through this pandemic. It's worldwide. So I think medicine is very important. So we will see an increase in the number of job opportunities in medicine as a whole. So this is just an example. In the United States, we can see a lower number in jobs where they, where they're people to people and where they would meet the agriculture and food industry by $4.3 million. But there will also be an increase in that. There's also in China, they have increased their robotics very much by a big percentage just because of the changes of COVID-19. And this all happened in 2020. So we can see big countries have taken some different approaches because of the circumstances that have happened. So these are the occupations that might shift by 2030 or post-COVID-19 scenario. So you can see, well, the blue is the highest, going to the black as the lowest. So you see health aides, techs, and care workers are at the highest. And this is all through many different countries, from the United States, Spain, UK, France, Germany, Japan, China. You can see that India is a bit, you see it's a lighter blue. It's because that they already have a lot of medical care workers in India. So we won't see a big number there. But there are some countries who went through the pandemic and there was a big number of medical workers that were needed. So that's why they're prioritizing the health aides. STEM professionals, as I said, everything related to science, technology, mathematics, health professionals, managers, legal professionals. But what's the worst part, or the jobs that we won't be needing? Office support. We don't need that very much. Production and warehousing, agriculture, food services, customer service and sales, mechanical installations and repair, builders. Science and technology is really changing how the world is looking at job opportunities. So this is a percentage of higher education institution students. So they're not necessarily Bahraini, but this is the percentage of all students in higher education institutions in Bahrain. So you can see the pie chart. 40% are in law and business administration. And this is a very high number, law and business administration. Whereas we don't have so many in media and PR. They're only 5%. 12% are arts. And then you have 4% in education, 4% in, what's that? الخدمات. شو الخدمات? Services. But what do we need? We need more people in health, which is the 9%. We need more people in technology, information technology. Anything that you would like to study would have to have a technology side to it, an innovative side to it. Innovation is very important. So there's always a twist. So you can study one of these degrees that you might feel that they might not be important, but if it has technology incorporated in it, it might be of beneficial. So this is the number of students who graduate with sciences compared to the humanities. So 27% of students, of graduating students only graduate with science degrees. So we don't even have a 50-50 on that. These are the people who are looking for jobs, or job seekers. So if you want to study accounting and business and finance, you would be down here with 1,438 who are still looking for jobs. So you don't want to be down here, you want to be up there. So you want to be with those 315 looking for jobs in science, languages, healthcare, IT, communication. This is where we need to be. So in 4 years' time, after you graduate, or 5 years' time, this is something to look at. And I got the statistics from the Ministry of Labor and Social Development. This again, these are the numbers of people looking for jobs. If you can see, law has the highest, so we have the highest number of students who can't find jobs here in Bahrain, unfortunately. But IT, graphic design, mathematics, languages, they're all down there. So these are the positions or the degrees that you might want to keep an eye out on. So what has the government done? As I said in the beginning of my speech, there's a change in the Higher Education Council, and there's a lot that we're going to be working on. I know that e-learning was adapted because of the pandemic, but you will see more degrees that are going to be recognized in the future that would be online. They're not available right now, but they are coming and they are on the way. Flexible pathways. What does flexible pathways mean? It means that you could be a student who went into vocational training and then went on to work at the Ministry of Works or in a private company, and then you've decided that you want to get a managerial post or you want a desk job. You could go back to school and your degree would be calculated, the classes that you took would be taken into consideration. You finish off 2 years and then you get a bachelor's degree. So you could switch between vocational and academic studies. Another thing, you all know this, maybe not the students yet, but the academic staff of the Bayan School, you know that you have to have your academic certified before getting a job here. And it's very difficult if you can't find your high school diploma. I'm sure there's someone who went through this. Yes? So right now, the future is that you don't need to get your high school diploma. Like if you bring your bachelor's, we'll certify your bachelor's. If you want to go ahead and you want to get your PhD, you don't need to have a master's to get a PhD. You could go in with your bachelor's degree, the university could calculate what you need to get, and then you could get a PhD. So you could have a bachelor's and a PhD. This is available all over the world, but not yet here in Bahrain. So these are the changes that are going to be coming. And this will all increase the way of, of finding the right job for you, finding the right degree that suits you. برنامج عمل حكومة for 2019 to 2022. تحقيق التوازن بين التخصصات التخصصات العلمية والتقنية باتجاه علوم المستقبل لخدمة متطلبات واحتياجات سوق العمل. This sums up exactly what I've been talking to you about. So we need to find the balance between the humanities studies, scientific studies, IT studies, all to direct us to the future. And what are the future opportunities that would be needed in the workforce? The Higher Education Council introduced Clever Play in, I think this was before I started, but it would teach children to be more innovative. So this is something that's already done, and just teach them, the different skills that they might need for education, and how to prepare them for the future, and what degrees suit them best. So it's important to look at yourself and see what should you invest in the most. What's the best that you can offer, and invest in that. You need to focus on the skills that I said before. So if there's a certain skill that you're good at, focus on it. The whole world is going green, and it's all natural. Think about the future. What's needed in the future? Think about the problems that we might face in the future, and try to solve them today. So if you know the problems, what might we come across in 10 years, in 15 years, think about it and say, okay, I'm going to take this direction, I'm going to choose this field. This is what we need. This is the direction that I can take, because we're anticipating that in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we would need people in this field, that field. So, لا تحول فصل الدراسي لعالمك. The class should not be your world, but you should make the world as your own classroom and make the best of what's around you. So there's a short video. I think if there's one thing we could all agree on is that Bahrain is rich with its human capital. So when you're deciding on what degree you would like to go on, consider vocational training as well. You don't only need an academic degree to get the right job. Vocational training is quite as important as academic training. Bahrain, before oil was found, what did our ancestors work on? They were pearl divers. They were working in, gold jewelry makers. So there's a lot that Bahrain can offer. And sometimes the job opportunities that you might want is not what you're looking at. So take like a deep breath and find out exactly who you are and what you can do. So do we have any questions? No questions?
I would like to first thank you for your insightful presentation and thank you for your time. But I have a question regarding a topic that you brought up in your presentation and how...
I can't hear you. Could you take off your mask while you're speaking, please? Thank you.
I would like to first thank you for your time and your insightful presentation, but I have a question regarding a topic that you brought up regarding future jobs. So you mentioned that healthcare workers are asked for in the market, but doesn't that contradict what people say and how technology and robots will eventually replace human beings and their roles in the sector?
Excellent question. Yes, I did bring that up, that we really do need science and technology, and we need to find degrees that are more with science and technology. But healthcare workers, you need to have healthcare workers around. You can't run a hospital on machinery all the time. So the nurses and the supporting staff at the hospitals are very much needed. We need researchers, scientists, really, people who would like to go into research. I know that this is a field that's not very much worked on here in Bahrain, but I'm working with universities to make sure that their academic staff produce research. You know that 3% of the revenue of higher education institutions should go to scientific research? This is by law. It's a big percentage. There's a big number. So we're working on finding a new research fund. So science, technology is very important. Any other questions? Yes?
Other than university research, how will you incorporate research facilities in Bahrain in the future?
As I said earlier, through university research is done, through your academic classes research is done, but working on research is very important. So we can solve a lot of issues, even that the government is tackling, like right now, how can we consume energy? We need more solar panels, we need to work on a lot of things that could affect the environment, but how could we get there? We only could get there by research, by doing research together, individually or in a group. It can always be done.
When you were talking about the use of vocational training for future workforces, do you have any in mind that we should incorporate in our CV or in our personal experience that would help us find a job in the future?
Well, I told you earlier that we had 19 colleges and universities in Bahrain. Only one of them offers vocational training, which is the Bahrain Training Institute. And I feel it's important because skilled workers, if you go all around the world, skilled workers are very much needed. You know, if something needs to be done, you know, you need to have a skilled worker. Otherwise, you can't fix it. You can't go ahead and do it. I mean, if you look at Germany, their population, they go all into vocational training because they are very much into the industry business. You know, they make cars, they make a lot of electronic things. So this is something where, you know, we could look at. And when you want to study abroad, it's important also to get the work experience and then come back to Bahrain. I myself, you know, I studied in the States, and after completing my master's degree, I worked there. So the skills that I gained from working in an environment outside my home or my hometown, I think it gave me a lot of skills that actually benefited me and helped me where I am today. It's, you know, there are a lot of things that you get once you're out of your comfort zone. So it's not a wrong thing. You know, you could even if you're in Bahrain, you could go and study a semester abroad. You could go for a couple of months and get a different degree. So the experiences that you get from different people, different environments, a different culture, could always benefit you because you could see what's done there that's not done here, and try to figure it out. Yes.
طبعا اولا نشكر معاليك يعني على وقتك وجهودك، وحقيقة يعني محاضرة استمتعنا فيها، والله يقدرنا نخدم البحرين مثل ما قدمتي لها من حب وإخلاص. طبعا سؤالي هو حسب خبرتك، وإن هل المناصب الدبلوماسية توجه في مستقبل البحرين؟ ويعني هل المناصب اللي في السلك الدبلوماسي لها توجه من ضمن برنامج عمل الحكومة؟
طبعا يعني شرف كبير ان اي شخص يمثل بلده، يعني هذه اكبر شرف، وتمثيل البحرين في اي مكان، حال انت على السلك الدبلوماسي ولا مدرس هني في مدرسة البيان، كله تشريف للبحرين. ولكن موضوعك يعني طبعا السلك الدبلوماسي، يعني احنا طبعا يعني انتم تشوفون علاقات البحرين الخارجية تزداد سنة عن سنة، يعني نقوم بعلاقات جديدة مع دول مختلفة، نفتح سفارات جديدة. الفترة الأخيرة احنا فتحنا تقريبا 5 سفارات، يعني فهذه الازدياد يحتاج إلى زيادة عدد الدبلوماسيين. ولكن مثل ما قلت طبعا السلك الدبلوماسي موجود، وأي واحد يبي يدخل السلك الدبلوماسي ممكن يكون متخصص في أي شيء، ممكن متخصص في العلاقات الدولية، في القانون، في الاقتصاد، وغيرها من التخصصات المختلفة. اللغات مهمة، إذا ودكم تدشون السلك الدبلوماسي من المهم أن تكون عندكم أكثر من 3 لغات، لأن احنا هني في البحرين يعني bilingual. أنا قاعدة أتكلم عربي إنجليزي. I'm talking to you in Arabic and in English. You don't count English as a second language, so you would need a 3rd language to get into the diplomatic corps. There's a tough exam that you have to go through before getting in, so you would need to apply, and then you would have to take an exam, and after that exam there's a 6-month training period, and you're not a diplomat until you fulfill all of these requirements. The numbers are, it's a small number, so if you would be able to get in, it's a big thing. Any more questions? Yeah.
كنت أسأل من شنو من المهارات اللي ممكن نطورها في دراستنا الحين في المدرسة أن نكون نقبل في الأشغال اللي ممكن توجد لنا في 2025.
المهارات اللي ممكن تكتسبها
أيوة نطورها.
وانت في المدرسة. So what are the skills that you would need? Anything basically. It's the first time that I actually speak to an audience. So can you believe it? In all of my time, it's the first time that I'm actually on stage speaking to an audience with Q&As. So maybe you could work on your public speaking. I don't think I'm doing a very good job, but it's my first time, so you've got to give me a break. But I think any skill really. There's a lot that you could learn. I mean, even if you would like to volunteer and do anything, you know, if you would like to help some, the elderlies or whatever, they're all skills. You get a skill from anything that you do, really. Thank you. There's one more question in the back. تفضل.
Thank you for your presentation and spending your time here. You mentioned several times that we have to be one step ahead and have the skills of tomorrow today in order to succeed. And how can we acquire such skills and attain them as students?
I would say that you need to read. Just read and find out, because everything changes. From today to tomorrow, everything can change. Everything is different. It just depends on how technology is, how quick technology moves. So it's a day-to-day experience, really. Everything just changes so fast. So thank you very much. Hopefully, I hope I did well. So.
نشكر معالي الدكتورة الشيخة رنا بنت عيسى بن دعي آل خليفة. فلتتفضل الشيخة نورة بنت عبد الرحمن الخليفة والأستاذ مدحت مرعبي لتقديم هدية تذكارية لمعاليها. Teachers, please escort students back to their classes.